Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I am recording on the 9th of June. Friday the 9th of June, it is about midday, in which case I believe Theresa May is attempting to form a government at some point today. But obviously I don't know what's happened about that. I don't know what any of the other fallout. I don't know if what kind of arrangements have been struck or anything like that. All I know is what the news has told me this morning and what I saw last night after staying up until four-ish, just gone 4 in the morning, trying to keep track of what was going on. And as a result, though, I just want to come to you guys and I want to firstly just have a chat about a few things that I noticed, a few things that seem to be a kind of recurring trend, considering we've had two elections that are like this over the last few years, and as a result, I just wanted to state what I've noticed. Then I want to go into talking about a couple of other things that I want to address here in regards to how, again, tribalism seems to be winning. The shitty system that we have is unhelpful. The kind of misinformation and the kind of cult of personality politics is far too much than it should be, and I want to go into that to an extent. And then also because the um, the way that this seems to be working at the moment is that Theresa May is going to go into some kind of arrangement, be it either a formal coalition, which is less likely from what has been said, or a kind of confidence and supply kind of an arrangement with the DUP from the Democratic Unionist Party from Northern Ireland, and it's become a really interesting thing to see, because if you're like myself, I knew of the DUP in passing, but I didn't know them intimately enough, and as a result, I actually got them confused with the UUP when I was talking to people about it last night, because I was going, well, yeah, they're right wing, but they're not that right wing, and then I actually double checked that I knew who I was talking about, and no, I was wrong. I got the wrong people. Um, but as a result, let's kick off. So, first, just a few things that I've noticed. First off, all of the discussions that were going on yesterday evening seemed to be around the leaders and the personalities and nothing to do with the policies. Firstly, that pisses me off. Secondly, there are an awful lot of misguided, misinformed people who are purely attaching themselves to personalities or individual parts, or almost ideological, zealous views, which as a result, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't inform the discussion. It doesn't even help the discussion to be had, and it runs things into the ground, and it like tears things to pieces. It's not helpful. Um, the next thing that stands out to me, though, and this is I feel the big one, and that is the way that our parties are at the moment in the UK. We've kind of got one major Conservative party with a couple of hangers on, that kind of fade in and out. But then you've got at least two more kind of centre to left leaning parties, that make a continual return, a continual presence. And this is where the problem sits, because, for example, where I am, the only reason that a left leaning, progressive, potentially more cooperative party didn't get in was because the vote was split between the two left-leaning parties, leaving no real opposition to the Conservatives. And this is where, unfortunately, some of the tactical voting that was being suggested wasn't really working, wasn't really helping, because you had people who weren't in touch, or who were highly tribalist, and so they were like, well, yeah, that might help defeat the enemy, but I'm this color all the way through and through, and I'm not voting for anyone else, because that's the stupidest fucking thing that you could do. You know, attaching yourself purely to one color, one party, is ridiculous. quite frankly, because it's you again setting up an us versus them in many ways, when potentially you might be able to take good ideas, good policies from all sides of the spectrum and put them together. But I'll get onto that in a minute. The other, the last thing though, apart from that, is that in recent history, both the two elections we've had, so this one and then not the last one but the one before that, when we have gone from having an unelected prime minister who was put in place because their predecessors stepped down and they were just put in place by their party, not by the public, those individuals have then led on to elections, and those elections then, though, have basically ended up in a hung parliament. They've ended up in a hung parliament, and it has ended up with deals, coalitions, things that people didn't vote for, all kinds of other silly bollocks happening. And so as a result, here again is the issue. This country, many other countries at the moment, are being hugely divided by those people who are afraid and who cling to much more traditionalist ideas, or go with the kind of personality politics or stuff like that, rather than looking at the policies, looking at the big picture, and looking at what the actual effects will be. I've seen memes flying around all this morning of saying, the only people who have voted Tory are either millionaires or misinformed, and just check your wallet to find out which one you are. And to a degree, I agree with that, considering some of the policies that were coming out of the Tory camp. And now it seems to me to be even worse if they're throwing in their lot with the DUP. This is a segue, by the way, if you hadn't noticed, because the DUP are very right wing. They're very kind of like they're almost a nationalist party, but concerning the UK more so than anything else. And again, the people who are well off, or who already have free reign on things, or who are hyper traditionalist, very very conservative, they're going to be fine with this because they are untouched by it. But again, you've got a lot of things that I'm surprised that they're really going in on together. And then I've kind of got this issue around some of these other policies. So here's a thing from, I think it was Open Democracy. Simple Politics, who put up this infographic earlier today about the DUP's kind of platform and what they're kind of running on. And I'll leave this here for the moment just so you can take a look through it. But obviously, we'll take a look at it together. But it's like power sharing and unionism. They're working to avoid direct rule from London, which I feel is odd for them to then partner with May, even if they've said in other places that they've had a good relationship with May and the Tories, just because she is incredibly authoritarian, very very central control, and it's like that seems to work in contrast. They wish to retain power, but again, potentially this is kind of handing it over, and if they're not going into a formal coalition, then there's still a chance that then May will run off and do whatever the fuck she wants and leave them behind, the same way that she has done with all manner of other people and other things that she's worked on, both in her time as Home Secretary and in her time as Prime Minister recently. Brexit, no surprises there. They're hyper UK, and so as a result, that's what they want to do. But then also they're still saying there that they don't want a kind of hard border with Ireland, when that has been something that May has bounced around a couple of times, that it might just have to happen. And so, again, I'm surprised that her hard Brexit, locking us off from our closest neighbours, including those that in their case they are landlocked with, I'm surprised that is functioning here. But then again, we don't know what's been offered. The security and foreign policy stuff is fair enough. But then the interesting thing here is the introduction of a register of animal cruelty offenders. Okay, fine. So what about all the people that May wants to allow to go fox hunting again and rip those small animals to pieces with dogs? You know, like, there's a difference between treating foxes as a pest, shooting them, poisoning them, trapping them, whatever. You know, the humane options that are there that are quick and relatively painless, compared to literally having it ripped apart by other animals. You know, so how's that going to all play together? You know, and I realise that I'm picking out just little bits here, but these are the places where it's like, well, are you doing this for power, or are you doing this for whatever else? The other thing that really surprises me is that they actually have the support of the Heathrow expansion on here as a thing, which just just seems odd to me that it would be there. But obviously, this isn't the whole picture, and there's more to it about the DUP. First off, we've got the fact that they, very much like some of their kind of counters in Sinn Féin and stuff like that, were terrorists. They were attached to several different terrorist groups in Northern Ireland that were pro-union terrorist groups, but they were still essentially smuggling arms, undertaking illegal activities, attacking people, and causing an impact on individuals that may very well have been completely innocent. But obviously, considering the Northern Ireland peace process and so on and so forth, and how these people were still leaders within their communities, then fair enough. You've got both the individuals in Sinn Féin and the individuals in the DUP, fair enough. But it does seem somewhat hypocritical to then have May, who criticised and bashed and repeatedly attacked Jeremy Corbyn for his interactions with individuals in Northern Ireland in the past, when she's now doing this in the present with full knowledge. You know, that seems hypocritical. But then again, May is a massive hypocrite, as are so many of the people that support her. So that shouldn't be any real surprise. But then moving on, let's actually talk about some of their policies rather than their history. Now, they are one of, if not the most kind of mainstream seat-holding kind of elements within UK politics at the moment. They are the hardest against abortion, taking a very strong pro-life, kind of pro-forced pregnancy stance, often with religious grounds, depending on how you on which kind of individual you address with these things. So that becomes even more problematic in the long run, especially considering that with the potential excess privatisation of the NHS, having these things then being blocked when women may very well need the abortion or need to choose to maintain either their lifestyle or whatever else, then either you are going to see an increase in children being put up for adoption, which is never a good thing, or it's going to turn into a case of these women are going to suffer substantially, which is ridiculous. I mean, there are various discussions that should be had about abortion, don't get me wrong, but I do not feel that the ones that denying the fact that there is that it's the woman's body and that she has ultimate say on what goes on, considering she is basically the incubator for this new child, that comes down to like a very big discussion there. And something that the DUP doesn't want to engage in because they are just purely against it. They are also climate change deniers, although then again, considering the President of the United States currently is as well, maybe they're in good company. Well, I say good company. But even with that, they got stuck into a scandal not too long ago with their kind of issues around, I believe it was a biofuel subsidy scheme that may very well have just been rolling things around to benefit the DUP staff and supporters, and so there was a significant investigation into them. And then the final thing is that where gay marriage has been a kind of topic that's come up and bitten people in the backside. For example, Tim Farron with his ridiculous religious views that then allowed him to spin round and get picked up on comments that he made about gay marriage in the past. It's one of these things where it's like, look, we can all agree that it's just a case of leaving people alone to live their lives, right? That's a straightforward thing, and so as a result, having this party who is very aggressively against this, again, seemingly more on religious and moral grounds rather than ethics or rights grounds, it's concerning, considering that we've already got this kind of stuff being rolled around to a degree. These kind of removals of rights, these kind of oppressive, kind of authoritarian kind of things being put in by our current, or by our previous to current government anyway, on all manner of things. And so now having them partner with these individuals who are even harder than they are is concerning. And then in regards to Brexit, there were they received additional monies from a group called the Constitutional Research Council, who have ties to Saudi Arabia. Now, we already know that Theresa May and our government seem happy cooperating with Saudi Arabia and kind of selling them weapons and things like that, when they are also to a degree in support of the individuals who've been taking responsibility for recent attacks on our own soil. But apparently that doesn't matter, because these guys said that their connections between that council and the links with Saudi intelligence and the money that as a result came from them to the DUP aren't a problem for us. So apparently they don't have any more concerns about this than May does, with the fact that she will condemn all of these attacks and things when she's potentially the one who is at the very, very top of being in charge of kind of ensuring that these people survive. But it's troubling. It is, and yet at the same time, kind of there's nothing that can be done. It will just have to be a case of seeing what happens later today, seeing what happens moving forward, and seeing how much opposition can be put forward aggressively, and whether or not May screws over the DUP, which wouldn't surprise me at all, but then also means that she is sat there in a minority government against, more prominently, a collection of more left-leaning parties that are seemingly more willing to go and tackle her on things. And if she lacks this extra support, then she is likely to lose. But then again, as said, our system is hopeless. Our politicians are usually quite poor there in regard to actually turning up to votes and things as well on certain important matters. So we'll again have to kind of see how this all goes. But then I wanted to close out by talking about kind of political nature versus political demeanour. And what I mean by this is that we as people tend to have a political leaning that we just gravitate towards. Yeah, it tends to be on two axes. Just so that you guys can see, for transparency, here's mine. I tend to be much more focused towards kind of being left, or being more progressive. I don't like the left and right here. I think it should be more progressive or traditionalist. But I tend towards being more progressive, and I tend to be more kind of liberal or libertarian in my outlook, where it's much more to do with freedom and access and stuff like that. But then, when you've got Theresa May who's over on the blue square there, the blue quadrant somewhere, with being highly authoritarian and right wing, more traditionalist, that's the counterpoint. But that's my nature. That's what I gravitate towards. That's what I look towards, to be as a impulse, yeah. But then, as I've said before, the center is the place to work from. The center is the place to be and to function from. And so, I'm sure you guys are going to say, but you've said that all along, but you're obviously very left. And I'm like, well, no, because I have a choice, because I'm aware. Yeah, I'm aware of my nature, my leanings, and things like that, and so I can actively take the time, as I did with the manifestos this time, where I sat down and went through all of them, the 30-odd thousand word fucking documents and stuff, to go through it all in detail, as well as then following up with bullet points and analyses and the things like that, and then doing my own, which meant rereading some of the stuff and going through it again so that I could then bring it to you guys. As much as that was a much more casual kind of run through for me, just to make some points made, get some points made. With this, it's a case of, yes, well, I can now actively go and take a look, and anything that's good I can take away and I can work with, because I will kind of forcefully make myself be central. I will sit in the middle of this and I will appraise every idea based on how effective it would be, based on how useful it would be, on the people it would impact, on whether or not it is even possible or makes sense, and that's where I will sit, and that's where I will encourage other people to sit. Because, for example, here in the left authoritarian, you're talking about the elements of equal rights being enforced, yeah, where you have an authority enforcing something that is progressive. Acceptance of gay marriage, for instance, what I was talking about a minute ago, would be a left authoritarian thing, because it is an enforced thing, yeah. But at the same time, then the embrace of kind of allowing people their lifestyles, allowing people equal opportunity, but not enforcing equal outcome, that's a left libertarian thing. And so both of those things don't need to be mutually exclusive. They can coexist, where one is an enforced progressive thing and one is not. But then, so that's the left side. That was an easy one. But what about on the right, Seb? Right libertarian tend to be more focused towards business and capitalism, and business and capitalism and competition and stuff like that do generate innovation. They do generate new jobs and things like that to a degree. Obviously, there's a slope off due to the advance in technology and the kind of way that innovation is now kind of slowing down or bumping into issues, because it's not providing as many jobs for a growing population. But it's still there. You've still got that kind of push towards it, and so having more access to business, access to entrepreneurship, having policies that support both workers and employers to continue to innovate and progress. In that sense, that would be maybe more of a right libertarian thing, and there are a whole load of good options on those, including arguably some of the ones from the left-leaning manifestos in this election just gone. But then authoritarian right. Okay, so what is that? Well, that's going to be something towards the protection of native populations who have developed. Yeah, the protections on immigration, for instance, where we are not, as in our case, where we are a tiny island, we are not overdoing it. We are taking in the people that we need to take in. We are enforcing the rule of law on people who stay illegally and whatever else. Those are all important things as well. But again, those are just an example for each one. But there are good things that can come from each one of these quadrants, and so making sure that you are not blind to some of them just because you lean towards the other is important. And this is unfortunately what I'm seeing now, is people locking themselves in these quadrants and not engaging with those outside it. And this is where we get the manifesto promises, for instance, from the Tories that were just appalling. in many instances, or that were U-turned on because they hadn't been thought out well before. Then there was a backlash, and then they changed. Or the fact that people weren't reading the manifestos, they weren't engaging in conversation. May tried to hide from every possible debate she could hide from. It's a case of taking that central ground and being as objective and kind of sensible as possible with the way you're looking at stuff, which is something that, again, isn't showing up in the way people are discussing things after this election, after last night, simply because you've got people turning around and saying, oh, it was all Corbyn or it was all May. No, it shouldn't have been that. And if it was that, then that's where the problem is. I mean, there are other problems as well. For example, the whole gerrymandering, messing around with the voting districts, and the way that has affected the numbers, the fact that our numbers don't add up. They're not. There is no such thing as proportional representation in this country, and the voting system is a complete mess. But I want to do another video on that because that really bugs me, and I have consistently voted over the last several elections to try and get that changed, to try and get someone in that will make that difference. But our two big parties are happy and complacent and don't care about the rights of the individual. I don't care what Labour says about being kind of for the many. That's bollocks, because if that was the case, then they would push as one of the two major parties for proportional representation, for making everyone's vote count, for making a much more cooperative, collaborative, and kind of nation-focused, country-first, people-first parliament and government to enable the enrichment, survival, and growth of our country, instead of the continued and obvious kind of self-interest that continues running, because again the tribalism, the ideology, the nonsense is just continuing from all sides, unfortunately. But as said, I'll do another video on proportional representation in full later, and I want to actually take a look at the numbers from this election, which I've already screen capped, even though I think there's one seat that's still to go, but it's the majority of the numbers. I'm happy to work with that so far because I want to just go through it as an example anyway. But I'll do another video on that later this week, I think. But otherwise, I'll get rid of this. And yeah, tell me what you guys are feeling in the aftermath of this. You know, it's been like it was. We were told it wasn't gonna happen. Then it happened because May just felt like it, and then we've had stupid manifestos, like bad policies, having the average person not know what's going on, having all of these people just scrabbling around these individuals, not the policies, not the parties, not the way that the country works, not anything about that, just these sole people, these populist figures who are just, you know, not doing anyone any good. And then that's led to, through the voting system that is archaic and needs to be changed, we've ended up in the situation that we are now, where potentially you've got an already right-wing party that is kind of pandering right further, with a really right-wing party that is in direct opposition to a lot of things that their now new bedfellows kind of want. So, you know, tell me what you guys are seeing, what you guys are thinking, yeah, here's hoping that the rest of today becomes maybe less glum, and then, even though it's absolutely pissing it down earlier with rain, and then yeah, we'll have to see how the next few years go. Hopefully not too bad. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you found this at all interesting, then please drop us a like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.